Hello. Today, Chanel and I are going to tackle all things money. Well, more so our relationships with money. We'll talk first jobs, paying our way to college, how we financially survived grad school, and how we now plan to approach saving for retirement. How's it going, Chanel?
It's going good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Doing all right. Same old, same old. I'm excited to get into this episode.
Money, 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 money.
Make it rain. Make it rain. Ooh, I feel like the topic of money is like an ever prevalent topic. I don't think that's anything that we could ever grow out of.
You
Is
see, it's because we
money.
live in a society. Capitalism is king,
Capitalistic, yes.
and he rules
Capitalistic
with an
society.
iron fist.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So I don't know. I feel as though we should just talk about our journeys with money, kind of
Yeah.
where we started and where we are now. Because honestly, your fundamental experiences with money, your first experiences with money kind of shape how you deal with money now, at least for me. So it's probably good to know how we started with it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for
Do you
me,
have a good relationship? Okay, yeah.
well, for me,
Mm-hmm.
I when I was younger, my parents would just give me money. I didn't have an allowance.
Mm-hmm.
Like anything,
Mm.
if I'm going to the mall, okay, here's some money, or I'm going to the movies, here's some money, or I want to buy something, okay, we'll buy it for you. Whatever. It was just kind of like you can have whatever you want within reason.
Mm-hmm.
I
Of
don't think I
course.
had expensive taste. Can I have a MacBook? That was not me. I was like,
Every 2 days, right?
yeah,
The new version came out.
yeah.
This iPhone 10 is stupid. I need the
I need a new
11
one.
Pro Max
Can I have a
today.
car? I'm 10. Like, no. So, yeah, but I didn't really have to worry about money when I was young. I first
Mm-hmm.
started working when I was 17, and
Mm-hmm.
I started my own tutoring business. So,
Oh.
yes, I used to tutor the middle schoolers and high schoolers when I was
Mm-hmm.
in high school, and I would drive to people's houses and
Mm-hmm.
uh, tutor their children. And I was making like, I think I charged like $12 an hour. It was pretty good.
Yeah.
It was pretty good. This was back
It
in
is pretty good for your
2013.
age and the
Yeah.
time. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
So, yes, I had my own little business. So, with that money, I just spent it on like gas and I don't know. I don't know what I spent that money on. Just like probably hanging out with friends. That's about it. So,
Mm-hmm.
that's like
Okay.
before we hit 18. Well, 17, I went to college. So, before
Mm-hmm.
things actually got serious, that's what I was doing.
Right.
What about you?
So my relationship with money, I can't remember it per se. I never had an allowance. So or I never really had money to do things, I would say. Most
Mm.
of my activities happen to would happen where you weren't really spending money. It's like I would go to so's house, I'd go to somebody else's house. I didn't really have access to transportation until I was 17 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I had a car my junior senior year of high school, so
Same.
for me, money was just kind of a thing where I can't remember per se how I had it, but I know for a fact like I couldn't just go to my parents and be like, "Hey, can I have money for this?" It was just one of
Mm.
those things where I think if we were doing family outings, we could go. Like my parents would cover, and certain circumstances where it was just like I was in a lot of advanced programming, so the students were a small knit group, and I would explain like, oh, they're bonding or they're doing work together. I think I always use a pretense of like we're studying, and so I would get money that way, but it wasn't always like a hey, can I go to the movies? They would pretty much be like we have movies at home.
Mm.
I also tutored. I had my first tutoring jobs. I think I tutored fourth graders starting in like seventh or eighth grade, and I more officially started tutoring middle schoolers in the beginning of high school. And that money is money that I use to be able to go out and do things. So when I got into high school and it was more important to actually be outside, I had to use my tutoring money to be able to go to the movies, to be able to go and get food, sometimes even for lunch. Um, if like students didn't want to eat lunch on campus, we'd hop into the car and go somewhere else. Like that would be my own money. As soon as I got a job, I was fully responsible for myself with the finances outside of course, I didn't have to pay room and board. And my parents gave me like dinners and stuff,
Hallelujah.
but but from
That's
a very
crazy.
early age, I learned how important the dollar was, and I actually became very stingy and frugal with it just because I had so little and I had to make so little do a lot. So my early stages of relationships with money was just like, dang, like I got to keep this close, and I can only spend it when it's necessary. I can't do it any other way.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's rough. Let me just say, people out there in the world, parents need to support their children. I just got to start with that. We had no say for us being here on this earth. Our parents made a decision to have children, and that decision comes with finances for at least the first 18 years, okay? So if they were out here charging you room and board, I would have been like, seriously?
That
We're just
honestly,
not,
oh,
like, what the heck? The fact that that was
that
even
would have been
something
crazy.
like you had to mention is crazy. But there are people out there like that. There are people out
No,
there
it's
like that.
which is the reason why I wanted to preface it, because I feel as though whenever I explain how I got my first job, so like the reason why I got my first job was because I was told that my extracurriculars and the things that I was doing were too expensive. I have siblings, so just to kind of balance everything, I was told that I would need to start making my own funds to be able to take care of certain things that were just deemed to be too expensive. So I just wanted to add that out there, because whenever I explain that, people are just like, "Did your parents attempt to kick you out?" No, but I did have to, around like my late junior, early senior year into senior year, right before college, I did have to start getting my own funds to do things for myself, because my parents
Boo.
were just saying,
Tomato, tomato, tomato.
"Girl."
Boo.
Anyway,
You're looking
so
at me like
yeah,
I'm wrong.
I'm not looking at you any which way. I'm just trying to explain my situation. That's
That's
all
true.
I'm doing, is explaining my situation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
People can have their thoughts and opinions on my
I
situation.
do.
I can't
Mm-hmm.
change the life that I
I
live.
do. I do. You did live the life,
Okay.
and I have opinions
I
on it.
yes, yes. Anyway, from there, I think because I was already in the sphere of like having jobs, when I went into college, I had like odd end jobs that I just kind of started doing in order to have extra spending cash.
Mm-hmm.
Cause yeah, tuition was paid for, um, tuition and like meal plan was paid for, but then anything extra was kind of my own money.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, I didn't. By the time I had gotten to college, I didn't bring my car, or my car was old. The first car that I had was really really old, so I think it was just one of those things where my parents weren't comfortable with me driving around in it, because we just did not know when it was going to die.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to worry about paying for gas and stuff. But as a college student, there's a lot more to college than just your tuition and your books and your meal plan. So
Mm-hmm.
all the finances that kind of went to, doing events outside, paying for fees for clubs, participating in things like intramurals, or even going out to restaurants with other students. Those are all things that I had to pay for. So I started working odd end jobs in college. And so I was able to make like $9 an hour being a research assistant, and that's where I started. And I kind of moved up to being like an admin assistant, because I paid closer to $13-14 an hour. And I just kind of worked those jobs on end throughout my first 2 years of college before I started getting into internships. Because by the time you're a junior, they're like, oh, you've done your hardest courses of your major. And being an engineer really does help, because engineering internships pay.
Mm.
They take you to the bank. And yeah, starting junior year, I was paying for my tuition. It was second semester junior year. And then all of my senior year, I was paying fully for my tuition on top of other things. So I needed a real job, and thankfully, engineering got me real jobs where I was able to do that. Um, but yeah, I kind of struggled with being a broke college student because all the money that I was making was already spoken for, you know. So it was kind of like again working a job just to get by, and so that just kind of continued the cycle of like I don't have money, I don't have money, I don't have money.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Did you have the same experiences in college? Do you struggle?
I feel like I had a slightly different experience because
Mm-hmm.
number one, my journey with debt started when I was 17 years old.
Oh, really?
Yes, and this is common for most people who are going to college in America. Student loans, student
Mm-hmm. Oh,
loans.
student loans. Yeah.
Yes. So, let's see. So I did get my tuition paid for because my
Mm-hmm.
dad is a veteran and he was injured in duty. So when that happens, he got his college paid for, I think, or at least some of your college paid for, and then like your spouse and your children can have their college, like
I
just
did not
tuition
know that.
covered. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's only if you have a certain disability like percentage after being a service member. So, yes.
Oh, wow. Wait, so your mom, you, and your siblings could have all college paid for because your father's a veteran.
Yes. It's like a certain amount of
Wow.
years, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um
Okay.
your tuition. So, yeah, I got my tuition covered, but I decided to live on campus. And
Mm-hmm.
so, first of all, I live in Southern California.
Yeah, I feel like that should be important. I went to college in Arizona,
Yeah.
and then Chanel went to college in Southern California. So.
Yeah. So, California is very expensive. Dorming is even
Mm-hmm.
more expensive. It's pretty ridiculous. I don't honestly remember how much it was, but probably for the year, it was probably somewhere between like $10,000 and $15,000. That's how much I spent to live on campus. If I hindsight, I wouldn't have done that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but my ideas on finances right now are a lot different than what I had in the past. So
Right. Of course.
back then, I was like, I originally was just gonna live at home because I live like maybe like 30-45 minutes away from the school. So
Mm-hmm.
that's drivable because we're Americans.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I was like, "Oh, I'll just drive to campus." But then I decided last minute, like, you know what? I think I actually do want to live on campus and get like an actual, the college experience.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so I did that. So I took out student loans to live on campus because that's a lot of money. I didn't have that money. And then
Of course.
any like extra expenses, because the student loans, they build in not only tuition, they which I had
Mm-hmm.
paid for, they also have like books and like food and other things that you need
Mm-hmm.
to survive while you're going to college. So my first year I did not work whatsoever. My second year, I don't think I worked either. So I was just purely living off of loans.
Mm-hmm.
And then the first year I was living in the dorms, and you know how expensive that was. And then the
Yep.
second year I was living in like off campus housing, but it was like right down the street, and it's still like university, like a company is like, here's some university housing type thing. So I
Mm-hmm.
was still sharing a room, but it was an apartment this time. And I remember my rent was $750 a month to share a room and live with
Dang.
a total of three other people, but you share a room with one person.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that wasn't the smartest financial decisions, especially when you live uh 30 to 40 minutes away. But
Mm-hmm.
after that year, I decided to move back home because I was like, I'm spending all this money for why, like, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a commuter campus, so a lot of people commute. And so I was like, yeah, let me move back home. And then I also started working part time for a small tutoring company. I think then I was making like maybe like $16 an hour.
Mm.
Yeah, I think like $16
Mhm.
an hour. And then I was working part time. Um, and I would just work like 20 hours a week. So that was a nice little amount of money to have. And then in addition to having, the student loans and other stuff to, compensate
Right.
for other things. But yeah, so, and then I worked that job through senior year. And so, yeah, overall in my undergrad, I stacked up a lot of college debt. I probably stacked up like 30,000 maybe in student
Mhm.
loans for undergrad. I couldn't imagine if I actually had to pay for tuition. It definitely would be
Mhm.
more.
Right.
Um and then also, in addition to subsidizing my lifestyle, which I was definitely living outside of my means completely, I
Mhm.
started using credit cards when I was 17.
Tell me about your experiences with credit cards, Chanel.
Woo! So my mom signed me up for my first credit card when I was 17. And
Mhm.
so I, like many Americans, like all pretty much all of the Americans, I didn't
Mhm.
understand what a credit card was, what was the purpose of
Mhm.
it, like why do we use credit cards? Like, you know
Yep.
what I mean? I didn't
Yep.
understand that, and I didn't understand the fact that this is you're borrowing money from another person, and if you don't pay it back
Yeah.
within that month, you pay interest. And I just
Mhm.
kind of, my parents, they probably didn't have the education on it either. I didn't have the education, so I'm just doing what I think I'm supposed to do.
Mhm.
And so I would just anything that I wanted, I would just swipe it on a card, swipe it on a card, swipe it on a card
Right.
repeatedly. And so by the time I left undergrad, I probably, if I had to guess, I don't know because I really wasn't paying attention to my finances at all.
Mhm.
At all. So
Mhm.
if I had to guess, maybe I racked up like 15,000 maybe
Yeah.
in
Mhm.
credit card debt, 15,000, or like, and that would just be like the running balance, right? I was
Right.
making like minimum payments because I didn't understand, like, oh, if you just make minimum payments, it takes forever to pay off and you pay a lot more money than if you just pay it
Mhm.
all at once. So,
Yep.
yeah, I was not paying attention to my finances whatsoever. I was racking up debt on debt on debt. I was not budgeting at all. And I just kind of swipe my card for whatever I want. Thank God I'm not a
Yeah.
person that loves the finer things in life, because I would be in an even worse
Right.
position.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me with credit cards, I only remember talking about getting a credit card after my first internship. So credit cards, like you, confused me. I didn't really understand the purpose of a credit card at the time, especially because I remember finding, like, when I got my first internship, I remember seeing what my paychecks were going to be and then finding a place to live and figuring out the cost of living because my internship wasn't in the same state that I was going to college. So trying to figure out where to find to live for the summer and then how much it would cost to like do everything. I remember picking everything because I knew it was like, okay, this is my paycheck. This is the amount of money I'm going to have post taxes. I'm just going to spend it, right? Like I'm going to just pay
Yeah.
everything off as you should. My dad was like, this is a good time to have a credit card. And I was just like, what is that? And he's just like, oh, it's a way for you to like pay for things without having to pay for things, kind of like what you were saying,
Thanks,
borrowing
Dad.
money. But I was just like, I said to him, I remember having this conversation of like, I don't think that makes sense because I
Hmm.
have the money to pay it. What am I supposed to do with, I said to him, what am I supposed to do with that money now that if I'm going to be putting it on a credit card and I'm not spending money, but I'm spending money. And he was explaining to me how everything in the world is run on credit, right?
Hmm.
And it's important to build your credit. And the way that you do that is you spend a credit card. And I was just like, I just remember pushing back on him, being like, I don't feel comfortable spending money that is not my money. Because in my mind, I was just like, I feel as though I'm gonna have to pay somebody back. Like, this doesn't make any sense to me that I am spending money that's not mine, and the expectation is I can just spend money that's not mine. And I think the resolution was, he was like, just listen to me, and what you do is you just pay for everything with your credit card, and then you pay it all off with your actual money, and it's gonna work out in the end. And so that was my whole concept of credit cards. They just scared me. So any chance that I could, I didn't use my credit card. I used my debit card. And it wasn't until later in life when I started to learn more about scamming that I found out that it was important to use your credit card, because
Mm-hmm.
my debit card is directly attached to all of my money versus a credit card is connected to a fake person. Where if someone tries to steal your credit card information, you can call somebody and be like, that's not me, and you can get your
Mm-hmm.
money back, right?
Yep.
But kind of like you, the information around credit cards was hazy. I will say that my dad, he worked at Charles Schwab, has a finance background, a business background. So the information that I got with respect to credit cards, I think was more detailed, just because I think he dealt with people who maybe didn't necessarily have credit cards or didn't necessarily know how credit cards worked. And he was just like, my daughter is going to learn. But I don't remember the information being the most forthcoming. I just remember
Mm-hmm.
being like, credit cards are evil
Yeah.
and you should not be using credit cards. And I was like, out after I finish this internship, after I spend the money the way that I'm going to spend it, I'm never touching my credit card ever again. I'm only spending money that I have in my account using my debit card.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was it.
So
So
after college, what did you do, Senti?
I was dumb, and I decided to go to grad school.
Save! High five!
Woo!
Literally, going to grad school is like master's or PhD is literally an easy way to make a poor financial decision. It is the easiest
Yeah.
way to make a poor financial decision because I can tell you, Senti, I did a
Mhm.
master's program, and then later on I went
Mhm.
into a PhD program for 2 years, and then I quit because I was not a fan.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll have another episode on that eventually.
Oh
But
God.
oh God, help me. The worst of times and the worst of times. So, my master's program, I decided to go to the same school and get a master's. And so I paid for that with student loans. Okay.
Mm.
So I
Mhm.
think I still got my tuition paid for, except for a summer semester I had to pay out of pocket. But
Mhm.
I still got tuition paid for, but I made the decision to not work in my master's degree. That was a bad
Mhm.
idea. And then I
Mm.
took out student loans to support me while I wasn't working in my master's
Yeah.
program, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so the cost of my undergrad, like I said, was around like 30,000. The cost of my master's degree was 40,000. That's 2 years, baby.
Ooh.
2 years,
Dang.
40,000. If you're thinking about getting a master's degree, please pay for it yourself. Do
Mhm.
not get student loans to support a master's degree. Work, save money, go to a state school. Shout out to the state school because tuition wasn't that bad. Tuition was like $6,000 a semester. That's something you can support
Mhm.
yourself, right? So go to a
Yeah.
state school, make sure it's something that's applicable to your career and it's going to lead to a pay increase. And then make sure you work, you save, and you pay for that crap out of pocket. It is not worth it
Right.
to get student loans for that. I definitely regret it. I don't regret getting my master's, but I regret not financing it myself, especially because
Mhm.
my student loans for that, like I said, $40,000, the interest rate on those loans are higher than the
It's
undergrad ones.
insane.
So the
Yeah.
undergrad ones, that's somewhere around like 3%, which is like, okay, that's
Okay.
not that bad. I'm just going to, minimum payment, that's fine. Government, you'll get your
Mhm.
money, right? But for the graduate student loans, it's 6% and up. So
Mhm.
like 6.5 around there for the graduate student loans. That is not good because
Is it? Do they just assume because you're getting your master's that you
mhm,
should be working a job or something? Is that
they
the reason?
basically like, okay, master's is shorter. This is something that's like a luxury. And so you'll be
Okay.
making more money. And so, yeah, we're going to make your interest higher so that you just pay this back, essentially, right? because you're probably gonna pay it back and you're gonna get it done, whatever. I think it's from that perspective, which I guess makes
Okay.
sense, but like, don't do it. I have $40,000 I have to pay back at 6% interest, which means just
That's
like
crazy.
that's just a whole lot of how much money I just gotta pay because I took that money out. You know what I mean? Like just free money I have to
Yeah.
give to the government because I decided to take that out instead of just working a
Mm-hmm.
job. Because I think I took out $20,000 for each year I was in the program. I could have
Mm-hmm.
just worked a job and made $20,000. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not even a
Probably
lot.
more even.
I working a job
Yeah.
that would be me working part time. I could have just had a part time
Oh
job,
yeah. Part time. Yeah.
right? Part time job in my field, and that would have been enough to cover it. But instead, I was like, I'm just gonna go to school. And so, yeah, if you do a master's program, please work. PhD, on the other hand, Cindy, you can't work outside of that. So, what was going on for you?
So yeah. Uh, I didn't go and get my master's. Immediately after I graduated college, I went straight to a PhD program. I will say, fellowships are your friend.
Yeah.
I applied and got the GEM fellowship. I don't know what GEM stands for, but with that fellowship, the expectation is for you to work an internship before you start your program, whether it's master's or your PhD. So I was working a job at Intel, and they were paying me a salary of 90K a year. Obviously, that's not what I got because I only worked for 3 months, but take 90K divided by 12, multiply by 3, whatever, and you'll figure out how much money I was able to get pre-taxes for those 3 months of working. So with graduate school, it's kind of like you're a student and you are also an employee of the school. So you get a stipend, which is your salary. But they call it a stipend because it is not livable to be a salary. And going into grad school, my stipend was $30,000 a year. I believe they did like a study while I was there to try to figure out what $30,000 equated to for the area that I was. And I think we were about $2,000 above what minimum wage was for the location.
Ooh.
So I'm just about making minimum wage. Because it's graduate school, I'm taking courses while also doing research. I don't have time to get another job. So I don't have ways to help meet or make up the other money that I would need to live comfortably. Yeah. And so it's so interesting because if, as an engineer, I'm a chemical engineer by degree, right? So I know a lot of my counterparts, the people who graduated with me in undergrad, they were getting jobs at Intel, starting salary $70,000 a year minimum, right? And because I interned with the company, I probably could have been more likely to get the salary that I mentioned for my internship as my starting salary. So I went from making $90,000 for 3 months to $30,000 a year, increasing upwards to I think $33,000 by the time I finished my PhD 5 years later. Not being able to work any extra job, so pretty much trying to make nickels and dimes dance and turn into dollar bills so that I could eat. It's crazy because you're broke in college, but it's a different kind of broke when you know that you could be making more money than what you're making,
And your
you have
friends
to
are
live
making
with
that
it.
money.
Oh, it was painful seeing people who were my age, who graduated with me or graduated a year below me, taking vacations. I couldn't afford vacations. So now I didn't have enough money to go home for holidays. Yep. I had to pick holidays to go home for because, Thanksgiving is like 2 weeks after Thanksgiving is Christmas break. I had to choose which one I had to go to. And after my first year with graduate school, I could only be home for a week before I was expected to come back because it's still my job. Like when you're in a job, you can't take a month off of work. You only have a certain amount of vacation time. And as a grad student, I think we had like 21 or 22 days a year.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was just a different level of broke. I think it was worse in grad school, my level of broke, even though I had more of a constant stream of money coming in grad school. I just think it just hit different. It just sucked.
Yes. And after I did my master's program, I followed Cindy. to the same school. Not the same program, but same school. First of all, I had to move from California to Texas, okay, for this
Mm-hmm.
program. And so I had to pay for all of that. And this is coming off of not working for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so during my, so during the moving process, got a lot of debt. Yes. So,
Hmm.
when I first, I had to pay for flights and stuff like that. Okay. Put it on the credit card. I had to rent a car, put it on the credit card. I had
Mm-hmm.
to, well, I didn't have to, but I got a new car and my mom was egging me on, bro. But I'm an adult, so I have to take responsibility. But, I was like, oh, I should just ship my car out because I had a
Mm-hmm.
practically paid off car. I should just ship my car out to Texas, pay, whatever is probably going to be like $1,000 or whatever to ship that car out, whatever, 800, something like that. Ship my car out to Texas. Or I could have
Mm-hmm.
drove it, whatever, but single black woman driving through Texas, I don't know about that.
Woo.
So I could have shipped my car out to Texas, have a free and clear car, and not have to pay for my car. My mom's like, no,
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to do that. Like, just get a new car. And I was like, you know what, Mom? You're right. Let's get a new car. And so I got a new car. Luckily, I was smart enough to get a used car.
Mm-hmm.
People out there, get a used car, like 1 to 2 to 3 years old. Get a used
Right.
car. Save up money, put down a down payment, you know what I mean? Get a low interest rate and, make sure that the payments, no more than 3 years. We'd be stretching them. We'd be stretching them
Right.
payments to 72 months. It's not good for you. Apparently, it's
Mm-hmm.
not good for you. Anyway, so I got a car. Luckily, I got it loan through my credit union. Get a credit union, people. So my interest rate
Mm-hmm.
is like, I still have the car and I'm still paying it off. So my interest rate is like 2.7. That's a good interest rate. That's a good
That
interest
is
rate.
good. That's really good.
Yes, so I'm happy about that. But that is another debt payment they have to make, right? So at the time I had
Mm-hmm.
to pay $300 a month for my car. We're already stretching the small budget thin. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that was another mistake, getting that car, adding to my debt, and then getting an apartment. Once again, my mom, she was playing me, but I'm an adult, so I have to take responsibility. I was looking
Right.
for apartments, and I'm like, okay, if I'm making 26, the only thing, if I'm gonna be putting rent, right, it's got to be low. I'm
Right.
like, I'm gonna have to pay like maybe $800 or less, like to
Mm-hmm.
be honest, if we're actually being real, right? And so my mom's like, no, you don't want to pay $800. You're going to be living in the ghetto. I can't have my daughter living in the ghetto. And I'm like, okay, mom, relax. And
Yeah.
so she was like, you know what? Just get an expensive apartment and I'll help you. I'll help you out. This is how people survive in grad school. Their
Yeah.
parents
It's
pay for
true.
everything. I had my parents subsidizing me, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
if I didn't, my situation would have been a lot worse. Shout out to
Mm-hmm.
mom and dad. And that's how
Woo.
a lot of people get through grad school because the amount of money that they give you is not enough. I had
No, it's
another
not.
woman, right? I had another woman come into the same program as me, and I saw how we were living different. You know what I mean? Like, she
Mm-hmm.
didn't have a car, I had a car type thing. You know what I mean? Like, there's certain differences that happen when you have parents to back you up and when you don't. And a lot of people don't, and they still want to get these degrees, but our society sucks. So it's literally inhospitable for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so it was just racking up debt. So I ended up getting a apartment that was like 1350. thirteen
A
fifty
month.
a month.
Dang.
That's a lot of
Yeah.
money. And so my mom's
Yeah,
like,
it
"Oh
is.
yeah, I'll subsidize you." But I'm like, "Mom, the rent is due. Where's your money? I need it. Where are you?" So she didn't pay the whole rent, but she probably helped me out. Like on certain months, I would just be like, "I need some money, Mama.
Mm-hmm.
I need some money to pay this rent, please." So I was like 24, 25, having to call mom and dad. That's lame. It really,
It's
like,
just
I feel like it messes with your development as an adult.
100% because
Genuinely,
the
genuinely.
expectation is that when you graduate at 21, 22, you should be able to get a job, that you're able to pay for everything, and that you don't need your parents. That's how they tell us, right? They
Yep.
tell us all you
Mm-hmm.
need to do is go to school. You go to like college, And once you get to college, you get a degree, you're guaranteed to get a nice paying job. And then when you have a nice paying job for a couple of years, you buy a house and everything is rainbows and lollipops. That's what they tell you.
Yep.
So when it's not like that, because we are being lied to. We're being lied to. In order to keep kids in schools, they're telling you that like the only way to be able to survive is to continue to go to school.
Yeah.
And that's the only way you're going to make money. When that doesn't end up being the case, of course it's going to ruin your psyche because you're going to feel like you're a failure because all you're being told is when you graduate, you should be able to get a job. And then with that job, you should be able to live the most peaceful, beautiful life.
Yeah. Lies. And so, yeah, so I was just racking up debt left and right because the stipends were not sustainable. So that first year, $26K, criminal. And then, you know, what made it harder for me, like you said, fellowships. I got the same fellowship as you. I didn't get a summer internship. Why? 2020, baby. 2020. COVID. So I didn't get my internship. So that is also rough because I'm like, it would be nice to have a little, you know,
extra
a little
money.
nest egg before you start. But it is what it is. Yeah. Going to a PhD program ruined me financially. So like after my undergrad, I said I had probably around like 15,000 in credit card debt, let's say, I'm guessing. And then my master's program, I definitely added to that. So let's say 20,000, whatever. And then after my PhD, 30,000, easy. And this is me paying every month. This is me consolidating debt into loans. Even, right? Because there was a point where I maxed out my credit cards. I can't remember if this was master's program or PhD. Maxed out a bunch of my credit cards. I was like, oh no, my credit cards. And so I got a personal loan through my credit union and consolidated the debt. And then you just rack it up again. Like, it's stupid. It's very stupid. And so, yeah, so after my 2 years of being in a PhD program and leaving, I returned home with $30,000 in credit card debt, you know, probably like a $15,000, maybe a little less because I was paying on it. So like, let's say $12,000 in car debt, $4,000 or so in a personal loan from the consolidation left over after paying for it for probably a few years. And then 70,000 plus in student loans. That's a lot of debt.
It is.
That's a lot of debt. And I had not made a full-time paycheck ever because
in this period,
in this period, because our stipends, you know, they only pay you for 20 hours, right? Yeah, so 20 hours. And it's technically for you to grade. So you don't even get paid for the research, which makes the school money. But yeah, so after graduate school, how broke were you?
My postgraduate journey, I had $7,000 of credit card debt. It didn't feel good, but when I got my first paycheck, I think I felt like I was on the top of the world because I finally felt as though with the job that I have currently and with the job that I had at the time that I got my first paycheck, I was being adequately paid for the work that I was doing. And it felt good because that credit card debt, while it kind of danced around itself for 3 or so months, it kind of did a jig left and right, you know, and kind of laughed in my face. I was able to pay it off in 3 to 4 months, something that I don't think I would have been able to fathom. That debt that debt would have followed me all throughout graduate school, and I was
100%.
able to pay it off.
Minimum payment.
I was a minimum payment girly. I didn't realize how detrimental minimum payments were until I was scrolling through. I think it was honestly recently when I was talking to you because we work and do finances together, and you were asking me how much I was charged on interest. Because even though you understand credit cards, you don't fully understand how wicked interest payments are.
Evil.
Because I was looking and I'm like, they're charging me $50. I think it's like every 2 weeks or every month for interest. And I'm like, that's $100 that I'm losing. Yeah. So I lost an extra $300 because my credit cards were not getting paid. Yep. So I did that with the swiftness. When I got with it, I moved some things around. Thankfully, again, savings came to save the day. And now I'm kind of in a position where I'm no longer having my credit cards kind of weigh me down.
Mm-hmm.
And my standard of living has improved. I have things in life that I'm doing. We had a whole conversation about hobbies. Hobbies are expensive. I never thought I would be someone to have hobbies until post grad life where I'm actually making money. So I picked up stuff to crochet. Even though I'm not really doing it, I have stuff to do it. I'm gonna be honest. I can afford to do the stuff all because I can buy the things. Doesn't mean I'm actually going to fulfill the hobbies, but I now have the option to do so. One of my current passions is furnishing my apartment. That brings me joy. I've always liked interior design, and I now have a space and I have the money to do whatever my heart's desire is. And I'm on Pinterest. I'm on IKEA's website, Ashley's Furniture Home Store, West Elm. And the crazy thing is, those places vary in prices, but there's something that I can get from each one of them that I can comfortably purchase without having to think too hard about it.
Yeah.
This is like the first stage in my life where I don't always have to think about money. Like, in a sense, right? Of course. Thank you.
Yeah,
of
snaps for that.
There's other things that come with this stage of my life. Now that I'm making real paychecks, I'm working hard to prepare for retirement, and that's a stressor as well. But and I'm sure we'll get into that. But from the positive perspective of always feeling broke and always feeling as though like I have to hold tight to my money, I think I'm now able to spend more frivolously and enjoy it and not feel bad about it. And that's something that I'm like slowly coming to terms with. But I'm able to do it. And it's very, very nice to be able to, see something and think I want it and purchase it and not feel regrets for it afterwards.
Yeah, 100%. So for me, I had a little bit of a rougher journey because I was, reaping the comeuppance of me just running around and swiping cards and taking out loans for literally a decade. So for me, like you said, I had $30,000 of credit card debt. Credit cards are evil. The interest rates are typically, well, at least for me, were around like 22%, girl. 22%. There was one with 29%. Like, expensive. And so I had $30,000. One credit card had 7,500. Another credit card had 8,000. Another credit card had 4. You know what I mean? Like it keeps adding up. And so I'm a YouTube girly. And so I was just watching YouTube. And this was at a point where I was like unemployed, just got out of my PhD program. I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do with my life? Like, I can't even like get out of bed right now. I just want to sleep for 3 years and I have to pick up the pieces and figure out what I'm going to do next. So I was on YouTube as one does, and I found this channel. Shout out to Caleb Hammer. Oh my God.
Ooh, shout out.
So he has a little show on YouTube where he does a financial audit. So he'll have people on and they go through a month's worth of finances. And I absolutely love the show. I watch it all the time. I still watch it. And I'm like, I can't believe you took out that credit card. What's wrong with you? When I am the person, I can't believe you got that car debt. You're crazy.
Yeah.
It is me. I am the crazy one. So I started watching it, and it definitely started out that way of just like entertainment. Like, these people are crazy, but hold on. They have a credit card debt and it's at 29% and it's a lot of money, and I also have that. And he said that's the worst thing that you could do. And so I'm like,
the worst.
That's the worst thing you could do. Oh, you got a car and you're only making $20,000 and the car is, $18,000. I'm like, huh. I think I just did that like a couple years ago. And so I was like, oh shoot. I am not doing a good job financially. And so, like, I already had an idea about that because I didn't really look at my finances and I would avoid it like the plague. But I was like, you know what? it's probably a good idea for me to focus on this and like try to resolve it. And so I would just watch his episodes as they would come out, and I would learn more about like, okay, budgeting, how should you budget? What that debt is a bad thing and you don't want to have debt unless it's, certain types of debt like home debt or something reasonable to get a car, but it has to be reasonable and not just crazy, you're spending crazy.
Yeah.
And so after watching those videos, I really got a fire lit under me, and I took about 3 months off after my PhD. I think I still got paid through the summer. I think
Okay.
maybe, I don't remember, but I had enough money. I don't remember why or how, but I had enough money to get me through those 3 months. I was searching for jobs. I got the first job that I got the first job that I had an interview for.
I remember that. You were just like, I'm gonna just go here to practice, and then you were
Yeah.
like, they offered me a job.
And I was like, oh, this is crazy. So that was lucky. So I got that job, and then I was making $85K, and I was like, dang, that's a lot of money because I've been making nothing my entire life. And so I was like, okay, now's the time. Let's do this. And I grinded. Luckily for me, I had the privilege to live at home during this time. So basically, I took the money that I would be spending in rent. I took about $2,000 to $3,000 a month, and I put that to paying off debt. And it took me a year and a half. A year and a half.
Yeah.
Okay. I was paying $2,000 to $3,000 a month.
Yeah.
Exclusively to debt.
That's crazy.
That's crazy, but it needed to be done. And like I was looking at all my stuff and writing it down. I'm like, dang, these interest rates are so high. I've been one credit card each month, the interest would be $300. I'm literally handing $300 to a person and they're setting it on fire. Each month for one card. Watch it burn. One card, Cindy. I don't even want to know what I was paying. I had to be paying like $1,000 in interest each month.
Yeah.
Just throwing it into the fire and watching it burn. So I grinded. I was responsible for the first time in my life financially, and I paid off my debt. And so that's where I am now. I paid it off the top of this year. And so now it's on to phase 2. I have to save up an emergency fund. I'm still living at home. I plan to live at home for as long as I am allowed to, because it's just it's great to be saving this money, especially when my finances still aren't completely in order. But next steps, I need to save an emergency fund, because not having an emergency fund is an emergency, period. I need to my car debt, it's 2%, so I'm just gonna pay the minimum payment, whatever. And then my student loans, I have deferment because I made nothing in my graduate program, so I'm on not deferment but the save plan or whatever Biden has.
Right.
So I don't have to pay anything for that. So I'm going to take advantage of that by getting my emergency fund. I have personal loan that I need to pay off, and then retirement. We're saving for retirement. I just put $1,200 into my Roth IRA. Oh my god! Because I'm trying to max it out before April.
End of the fiscal year, right?
Yes. So, I'm doing the things that I need to do, and I'll tell you what, being financially responsible and not having bad debt, it's a weight off your shoulders. I used to have so much anxiety about finances, and now I feel so much more chill. I get to do all of the things that I want and not have to be stressed out and not have to be paying minimum payments, 30,000 minimum payments. And I can just, pay attention to my finances and not feel guilty for making a purchase or, having fun, or feel a little bit of guilt for that, but then fix it in the next month. You know what I mean? Right. It's just, there's nothing like it.
Of course. I'm glad that you brought up the whole idea of the Roth IRA and retirement, because that's something else that I think was not something that I could have done during grad school that is prevalent now. So I know
Absolutely
we weren't
not.
making enough
This
money.
is what I'm
We were
saying.
not making enough money.
Do not go to a PhD program. I will say that until
Mm-hmm.
I
But I'm glad you
die.
brought that up because even though, like I said, I am able to spend more frivolously, there is still that responsibility because we are on our way to 30, right? The whole thing
Yeah.
about this podcast is like we are Black women on our way to 30 trying to figure out how our past life affected us currently and how to prepare ourselves for the future. And one of the things that we're doing is working on setting up 401ks for retirement, Roth IRAs, emergency savings, all of that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. I personally wish that I had that opportunity to kind of be that like silly kid. And I'm putting air quotes around silly, but I have coworkers who are 22 years old who are just graduating, who are kind of spending more frivolously, which is not saying
Mm-hmm.
it's a good thing, but they have more of the opportunity to because they look at someone like me who just graduated at 26 and is just now starting and they're like, "Oh, but Cindy, you're doing so well, so I have a couple of years before I have to worry about it," you know?
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
So I'm not
Yeah.
complaining. I do think it's important, but like sometimes I wonder what life would have been like. It's all what if I didn't go to grad school. I know you said don't do it,
Woo.
but would I be in a bit better position? Would I be in a worse position? I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out. But all that to say is
It's
it is
debatable
debatable.
because if you don't have that education on like budgeting or
Mm-hmm.
anything, you could make $1 million a year and still be broke.
It's true. It is true.
It's true because it's just you spending or not putting stuff away for retirement or saving. Like it just catches
Yeah.
up to you and putting stuff on debt even though you have it in your bank
Yeah.
account. You know.
But they're all good practices. But I think one of the things that I'm just, working on and like looking into the future is how to be mindful of the future, right? It's a crazy, weird place to be in of setting up money for retirement, setting up money for emergencies, and fully not knowing what life is going to look like by the time you're 60, but having hope that the decisions that you're making now, the money that you're putting away, it's actually going to do something to benefit you down the line. Because the last thing that any of us
Yeah.
want is to be at a point where we are not physically capable or mentally capable to keep up with the way that the world is going, but we don't have the money to uh, sustain ourselves on the day to
Exactly.
day. So it's a weird place to be in. Like I'm grateful for the money.
It
I'm
is.
grateful that I can spend the money, and I do spend the money. But at the same time, I also still need to be responsible in knowing that, if I open up a retirement calculator and I put in that.
Ooh, we did
We did
that.
that. That's the reason why I'm laughing because Chanel sent me and a mutual friend of ours a retirement calculator and had us do an activity of putting in how much money we currently have saved for retirement, our current salary, the amount of money that we want to set aside for retirement per month with our current salary, and how much money we want to be spending per month by the time we reach retirement age, which I think I put 67. So based on
Yeah.
where I am currently, with only working at my company for 8 months and with the amount of money that I had set aside, I would not have enough money to have spend about $5,000 a month by the time I hit 67 years old.
And that was the same for all three of us.
It was all three of us were in a position that we were not setting enough aside, even though I think we all believed that we were being very rigorous with the amount of money that we were saving. We are not being rigorous enough, or we don't have enough diversity in our retirement or saving plans to be able to live a comfortable life. And I don't even know if $5,000 a month is comfortable. It's definitely not comfortable in California.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things.
Yeah, I'd be curious because, like, once you get older, too, you normally have paid off your house and da 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 da, and so like the amount of money you need decreases, but also inflation was that calculated in,
Right?
And da, 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 da. There's a whole bunch of questions.
So, but regardless of all of that, by looking at this chart, we all saw that it's like, yeah, we are making real money. We do have money to do more things than what we had, but at the same time, we need to be cognizant of the fact that we need to prepare for when we can no longer work.
Yeah, we're not doing enough at all, like not even close. And one side of this problem is the fact that we didn't start when we were 17 and first started making money. You know what I
Yeah, but
mean?
we didn't know. Nobody
Because
knows.
we didn't know. Nobody knows. But now it's just too bad so sad, and
Mm-hmm.
that's how the world works.
Yeah.
But yeah, I saw like they recommend that you have a year's worth of salaries in
Mm-hmm.
retirement by the time you're 30.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Woo! Not even
Yep.
close. Not
What
even
you want to know what's so
close.
crazy? It's like like even with my company, because a lot of my 401k stuff is set up through my company. Even the place that's kind of tracking my 401k is telling me the same thing. I opened it
Yep.
recently and it showed me based on what I had currently saved and a track of where I was that I'm nowhere close. I am
Mhm.
nowhere close to making a year's worth of salary by the time that I'm 30. And we have
Yeah.
3 years. We have 3-ish years
Yeah.
to do that, and
Yeah.
it's just like nope. And I'm just like,
And
uh, oh,
it's
it
very
is.
scary.
It's terrifying.
And like especially, with me having the debt, I'm just so glad that I was able the privilege to live at home and like really throw
Yeah.
money at that.
Mm-hmm.
Cuz now I'm free and clear where I can actually put more money towards
Mm-hmm.
retirement, but I still have other stuff I need to save for, like I have to get an emergency
Yeah.
fund. You
You
have
have
to. You
to.
have to have an
You have
emergency
to.
fund. So now I have to work on that, which is taken away from the retirement, but I need that cuz that's going to mess up the retirement later if I don't got that emergency. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like so there's more stuff that I just have to throw money towards. I have student loans. Oh my god, 70,000 plus.
Mm-hmm.
And student loans that I got to pay. And so it's like it's just stressful to think about how much money you actually need to retire and the fact that you should have started 10 years
Yeah.
ago. No matter what age you are, you should have started 10
Yeah.
years ago. If you're
Yeah.
5,
Started 10 years
start.
ago. No, you should have started 10 years ago. How dare
You
you?
should have started before you were born. Your parents should have had the
Yeah.
wherewithal. Even though their retirement is definitely not
Oh,
fulfilled, they
100%.
should have started saving for your retirement.
100%. They probably, honestly, if you're 5, 10 years ago, your parents didn't even know that you were even a feasible concept. But still, they should have known.
Yep. They should have
Yeah.
started.
But anyway, I all this is saying we're doing something. I feel as though we deserve a pat on the
Yes.
back. Like
You gotta
the
try.
journeys that
Yeah.
we've been on with the money, the fact that like our childhood relationship with money to our first jobs, the fact that we are at a point that we are able to set up Roth IRAs, 401ks, have financial
Mm-hmm.
conversations, set up budgets, and even not necessarily stay on them because I know for me I have never been able to successfully fulfill my budget, but still have the or still acknowledge the fact that like okay this is where money should be going, and then being mindful of like
Mm-hmm.
yeah I didn't necessarily put it where it needs to go, but this is a plan of how I can fix it in the future. I think we made
Yeah.
great steps, leaps and bounds of steps in the span of our 10 years
Leaps
experience
and
with money.
bounds.
So congrats to
100%.
us.
And let's give the people out there a little bit of advice.
What type of advice?
If you didn't pick up on it. You see, just like general advice, like things. Well, let me frame this as a question, actually.
Okay.
So, if you could go back and change anything in your financial journey, you just have to bullet point it, right? If you could go back and change anything in your financial journey, what would you change?
Ooh. So I feel as though you're saying it more in the perspective of like, I should have opened a Roth early, or I should have started my 401k. The first thing that came to mind is have a serious discussion about graduate school.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm telling you,
yeah.
that is one of the most financial sucking, like, number one on my list would be that.
Right.
Because the amount of money that I wasted.
Mhm.
But because of grad school is crazy.
Because I'm assuming that our podcast will probably find people who are currently in graduate school. So maybe necessarily, let me give advice to Cindy who is in her 3rd, 4th year of graduate school, and it's just like, dang, I can't leave. I think what I would like to say to myself is probably be stricter with my budget. I didn't really have a budget. You know what I mean? And I feel as though when you're working with less money, I feel like regardless of the amount of money that you should have a budget. But when you're tighter with money, I think you should be paying more attention to where everything is going. I just kind of set the precedent of like, well, I need to eat, so I'm going to buy groceries. Or I need to pay gas. I need to pay for gas. but I never really sat to think like maybe I should meal plan, because now
Mm-hmm.
I create meals, and because I'm creating meals, I spend less on groceries because I am not necessarily buying everything that I want from the store. I'm buying things for a purpose because I think I wasted groceries, and that's wasted money.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd probably be more
Mm-hmm.
stringent with my budget. That's probably advice that I would say is like start budgeting early and getting accustomed and used to budgeting, because having a budget will help you forever, would be one of the advice that I have. And then I think another thing is like don't be too hard on yourself. That's just like, you got to make do with what you got to make do with. And I think also read more on investing. Like I didn't really fully
Mm-hmm.
understand 401ks, Roth IRAs, how to invest with those and other investment profiles until I graduated. I think having that information would have set me up beautifully for when I actually started having money. So that's probably would have been another piece of advice. It's like, one, don't go to grad school. But actually, if you're in grad school, strict your budget, don't be too hard on yourself, and read up on investments, 401ks, Roth IRAs. Even if you're not able to actually put money into them, just learn on them so that you can hit the ground running when you actually do have money.
Yeah. Well, that is some good
Wow,
advice
thank
for
you.
me. Wow. For me, uh, I think first at 17, I think it's okay to open up a credit card, but I would have sat down with, like YouTube
Mm-hmm.
or like read a book on like what are credit cards, how do you use them
Mm-hmm.
efficiently, and just open up one credit card and one credit card only and pay it off every month.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you put on there, you have the money in your account and you pay it off. So that would have been the first thing because it's important to build credit, but like, bro,
Yeah.
people be getting out of control. And honestly, building credit is not worth spending thousands and thousands of dollars on in debt interest
Yeah.
payments. It's not worth it. It's better for you to have no credit score than for you to be, because a lot of people get bad credit scores. I used to have like a 600
Yeah.
credit score, which is like below
Mm-hmm.
average, and I had to grind and pay off $30,000 of debt to get it to over an
Yeah.
800. So yeah, it's better to just not have a credit card. If you aren't going to be responsible with it, don't have a
Yeah.
credit card. The second you miss a payment or you start, well, I could put this on it. I don't have the money for it. Close the credit card. Don't do
Right.
it. Don't
Yep.
do it. So that's the first thing with credit cards. The second thing, I would have just lived at home during
Yeah.
college.
Mm-hmm.
Period. I would have took out less student loans. I probably would have. I didn't want to work crazy in college because I was a math
Mm-hmm.
major, a pure mathematics
Yeah.
major. I was dying.
Mm-hmm.
I was dying. I was dying. I was definitely like more than a full-time job, just my schooling. So I probably wouldn't have wanted to work as much, but I definitely would have took out less student loans. And I would have gotten like a consistent part-time job for all 4 years.
Yeah.
Just like 20 hours a week. Work that. I still probably would have took out student loans, but it would have been a lot less.
Mm-hmm.
Probably like instead of 30,000 without the dorming and the living
Yeah.
situations, it probably would have been like 15 or less,
Mm-hmm.
like 10, which is more reasonable. And then after that, I wouldn't have went to my master's program directly out of, well, I took a year off, but I wouldn't have went to my master's program until I had a full-time job, which this was hard. Hindsight was hard because I wanted to be a college professor, so that's why I continued my schooling. But I would have just worked instead, found a job in the STEM field, in the mathematics field. I would have worked, and then I would have applied to PhD programs, most likely because I wanted to be a college
Yeah.
professor. But I would have done it that way instead of going to master's program to kind of build up my resume and then go to a PhD program,
Mm-hmm.
because that's just, it's waste money. So I would have done that, or it's hard to say hindsight,
Yeah.
but yeah, I definitely would have worked before going to graduate school, and like a few years working,
Yeah.
few years full time working in an industry that's related to your degree. Get some savings going, get some enough to where you have a nest egg just in case anything goes wrong, or you can pay for schooling if it's the master's
Yeah.
program. So that And then let's see what else. I would have started saving for retirement when I was 2 years
Yep.
old.
Yeah, that's the only right
But no,
answer.
I would have. Yes, I would have done more like when I was young. I would have watched YouTube videos and learned how to budget. I would have watched YouTube videos to learn how to invest and how to, save for retirement, an emergency fund. I didn't even know what the hell that was until I was probably like a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
So, I would have done more research and try to figure out these things earlier rather than later. Okay? Cuz education or knowledge is power.
Wow. Yeah.
Okay? So yeah, I think that would be my advice to the people out there. You
Mm-hmm.
know, but it is what it is. Don't be so hard on yourselves. What happened happened, and now you just have to make the best going
Right.
forward. So,
Beautiful advice.
if you didn't do it when you were 17, start doing it
Yeah.
now. Get it together.
Beautiful, beautiful, wonderful. Yeah. Good talk, Chanel. I feel as though this felt great.
Yeah.
This felt healing.
This was great. I thought it was going to be a lot worse because we've been putting this one
Oh,
off.
100%. 100%. But we have good information in here, and I don't know. I like it. I liked it.
I liked it too.
Alrighty then.
Period.
I'll catch you later, girl. I gotta go.
Bye.
Bye.
Is someone knocking on my door? Hello? Open the door. Open the door. I'm filming a podcast right now. Goodbye.
Hi.
You want to say hi to the podcast?
No, thank you.
Okay, bye.